In today's video, we're going to be working on this Echo HCA 2620S. This is the articulating hedge trimmer. This is my absolute favorite trimmer in the whole world. I use it all the time. This one's relatively new. It has 42 hours on it. The problem with this trimmer is when we were doing the big bush trimming job that you guys may have looked at on our videos, it was running really bad to the point where when I started giving it a little bit of throttle, it would die out. It just all of a sudden started doing that. So I'm going to crank this up and let you guys see exactly what it's doing, and then I'm going to take you step by step exactly the way that I would do this and would recommend you do it. It doesn't matter if this is an Echo, it could be a Red Max, it could be Husqvarna, it could be any brand of two-stroke trimmer, but I'm going to show you the steps that you need to logically go through before you condemn the carburetor. So I don't know what's wrong with this because I haven't done anything with it, but I'm going to show you exactly what I do and we'll get this fixed. All right, so this is cold. I've already primed the carb a couple times. We'll put the choke on and we'll see if it'll start at all. Okay, pop off a little. All right, so far, it sounds normal, but it never ever takes that many pulls. It usually will start up when it's cold with the choke on, in like 2 pulls. So we're just gonna let this run for a minute and let it warm up. It is in the mid 30s out here right now. So and just so everybody knows, that's fresh, ethanol-free fuel, and it's the exact same fuel out of the exact same can that ran everything else that day, and nothing else had any problems. All right, so I'm going to give it just a little bit of throttle and let's see what happens. Okay, well this is really weird because it's not doing anything abnormal now. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let this fully warm up off camera and see if I can reduplicate it. If not, then I'm going to take you through the exact steps that I would do to diagnose this anyway, and we'll look at it together because it definitely was not running well a couple days ago. All right, so off camera, I trimmed some bushes and it started to cut out again. So I'm trying to get it to do it when I have the camera on so you guys can tell, but yeah, it didn't actually cut out, but it was starting to. So let's check it again. It's not running very smooth like it normally does. Here. Well, hopefully you heard it act like it was getting ready to cut out. This trimmer has been phenomenal and it runs extremely smooth. It's very It runs really clean. It's got really good throttle response. So it's even with it idling and running with it not trying to cut off, I can tell that something is not right. So we're going to try to figure out what it is. Yep. So the next step is I'm going to let this completely cool down, probably for an hour or so. I want it to be stone cold before we start doing any checks. All right, so we're going to check 3 things initially, and you should do this on any 2-stroke if you're having the issue of it either bogging or not wanting to rev up. First thing I did was I took the fuel cap off. I emptied the fuel into another container, and I'm going to see if I can grab the actual fuel filter here. You can use a piece of wire if you want. There's no fuel in it. You can usually just tip it up like this. Of course, when I say I'm doing it, it's not going to do it, right? Okay, so there is the fuel filter and the hose. And this is the original filter, and I can see there's absolutely nothing on it. It's perfectly clean. So just put that back in there. I'm going to put the fuel cap on. All right, next thing you want to check is the air filter. Now I have my hour meter attached to this cover, so I do have enough slack to get to the air filter. And this is normal to have some debris around here. I can just wipe that off, but as you can see, the air filter is perfectly clean, and I'm going to wipe this off with a paper towel. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull the spark plug boot. Now when you do this, make sure that you grab it by the actual groove that's in the boot. You can take your pliers if you want and hook on there. It makes it a little easier. If you'll give it just a little bit of a twist, it will pop right off. And I have my hour meter wire wrapped around here. Yours is probably not going to be this resistant to moving. But let's get the spark plug out next. All right, so this spark plug happens to be a 5/8, and it shouldn't be in there really tight. It just should be in there snug. This is the original plug, with it only having about 40 hours. So let me get this resituated here. All right, so the plug is not looking great. It looks like it's running a little rich. There's a little bit of carbon on there. All right, so my recommendation would be on this is to start with replacing this plug. But what I do want to do is I want to get my borescope and I want to look down in the cylinder, and I want to see if there's any scoring on the cylinder wall or the piston or any damage or anything like that. I don't believe there is, but I've got the borescope, so might as well take a look and see what we see. All right, so I've got my borescope. You're looking at the screen right here. I've got the end right here, and I'm going to go ahead and go into the cylinder. And you can see the piston and the bore. So The cylinder looks really good. You can still see the cross hatching. There's very little carbon on the top of the piston. Okay, so I just wanted to see if there was anything weird. You can see the exhaust ports right there. So, that's a pretty good clean cylinder inside there. All right, so the very first thing that I'm going to do to address this is I'm going to put a new plug in it. Now, this plug has 40 hours. Is that what it is? Yeah, about 40 hours on it. And I am going to replace the plug and see how it runs with the new plug. Now, that's not necessarily going to fix it, because it does appear to have a lot of, well, I'll say a lot, probably more than it should, carbon on it. Now keep in mind that a blower is probably going to run near wide open often. This hedge trimmer, I don't really run it wide open all the time. I mean, sometimes I do, but I do think that this plug is a little more sooty than I would like to see it. So the final thing that we're going to do, that we're going to check, is I am going to take the top of the trimmer or hedge clipper here off, and we're going to look at, and I'm going to pull the screen out. We're going to look at the exhaust port itself and see if there's anything that's clogging up the flow right there. That also can cause the problem that we have with the spark plug there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I believe it's I believe they're T27s. All right, so on this model, I believe I can just take this cover off here and not have to take the whole half of the assembly out. This is a T27, and you're going to find, if you're working on this same model, there is a screw there which holds the bottom of this cover. Okay, and then there's one right here on the front part. All right, so both of these look to be the exact same. So we'll put those aside. Yep, and this plastic cover comes right off. So I like that design. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take off, I'm not going to take the whole muffler off, I'm just going to take off the assembly that holds the screen or spark arrestor. Right there. And that will give us access to our, the screen that's inside here. So I'm going to take this outside one off first. All right, so the entire assembly should come off like this. Oh, there it is. All right, so here's the screen, and it is 100% clear. Let me show you that by there is no carbon at all on that. None. You can probably see it better if I hold it up to the light outside. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. So that's completely clean. However, I will tell you that this muffler has, this is basically a muffler slash catalytic converter. So let me get the light in there. You can thank the EPA for this. Come on, focus. It's not wanting to focus. Let me back it just a little bit. All right, you see that right there? You see that honeycomb right there? That is basically the catalyst to cut the emissions. And there's a good shot of it. All right, but excuse me getting in the way here, but there's absolutely nothing in there. It's completely, totally clean. And a lot of times these screens will clog up depending on the oil and mixture that you run. I run the Amsoil Sabre at 100 to 1, and most assuredly I knew already that this was not going to be clogged up at all. So, all right, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to basically put this back. So I decided to show you guys, because you're going to probably struggle with this, how to get this screen on here, right? So there's no, I mean, it fits right there, but there's no way for the screen to be held there. There's nothing, and you've got to put this, so put it with your thumb like this and just hold it there, and then take the gasket, the heat shield, and I'm sticking my thumb in here, and I'm holding the gasket really tight. Now I've got pressure and it hasn't moved at all, and I'm just walking this over, just like this. Okay, so I still have pressure on that screen. So this is the tricky part. So I've got pressure on this whole thing now. I need to come in here with this, keeping pressure on this really strong. All right. So I'm pushing on this pretty hard, and the screen has not moved yet. So I'm going to start putting in the little screws. Okay, so I'm still keeping pressure on that. Okay. So once you get two of them in there, you should be able to let go. And that's how you do it. All right, so I successfully succeeded in breaking off one of these little screws that held on. It was one of the 5 screws that held on the little cover, but it's got 4 other ones, so I'm not going to stress it out. Anyway, so the exhaust is not clogged up. It's good. The fuel filter is good. The air filter is good. So perhaps the carburetor is either out of adjustment or it's flowing the improper amount of fuel. So before we rip this carburetor off, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to check it and make sure it's not loose. I'm just going to gently grab on this assembly and just make sure, and it's not, it's nice and tight. So I am going to replace this plug and see how it runs with that. And then if I continue to have, I'm going to monitor it. If I continue to have problems with it running with that plug, then the next logical explanation is going to be that there's an issue with the carburetor. So let me get the new plug in and we'll go from there. All right, so I have procured a brand new plug, and you need to make sure to check the gap on these. My old plug was at like .030, and it's supposed to be between between .024 and .026. So let's see what this factory plug is out of the box. Oh, that's not good. Okay, this plug is .032. That's way too much. What we want, I want to get it at .025. So you have to be very careful if you want to decrease the gap of the plug. You can take some pliers and just barely bend the electrode down. Don't hit it with a hammer. All right, let me get the actual tool that you use for this, and I'll show you how that's done next. All right, so this is the tool that I use. It's got markings here, and this is a wire tool, and yeah, this is almost .035. So it has a little key thing on this side that you can take and just barely close the gap a little bit. So I'm going to go with 2.5. That's still too much. Okay, there we go. So that's the way it's supposed to be. All right, so these tools are not expensive at all. If you gap plugs, it's very handy. So I'm going to go ahead and install the plug in. Okay, so I'm sure there is a torque spec on this, but I just do it to where it's just snug. That's it. All right, I'll put the boot back on. Okay. And everything's tightened up. I just need to add a little fuel to it, and we'll crank it up and see how it runs. Choke on. All right, so that has very snappy throttle response compared to what it was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this for a while. If the problem persists, then I'll take the plug out. We'll do a separate video, because then basically what's left is the carburetor. So I don't anticipate there's going to be any issues, but as of now, it's definitely much better than it was before, even when it's cold. It's not even fully warmed up yet. But so yeah, look for that that video if it doesn't solve the problem, and you can ask me in the comments periodically if if the hedge clipper is still running good, and I'll let you know there. And I'll probably let you know there also as well if it's not running good, and then we'll do carburetor video on this. But for now, at 42.2 hours, it looks like the plug was the problem. And I think maybe because the gap was really big, it wasn't getting a complete burn, but we'll see. So it is gapped properly now, and you saw how quick it started up compared to the last time. So I will see you guys on the next video.